What is going on, guys? Welcome to this edition of the Second Chance Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Chance Dyson. Hey, listen, I really hope you guys got to check out last week's episode with my guy from Sports Illustrated and the Kansas City Chiefs, Jordan Foote. He has a plethora of knowledge, and if you didn't get to see last week's episode, you really should go check it out. If you haven't seen any of these episodes, you should go check it out because I've really had a good time doing this, and I really hope you guys enjoy them. So far, it's been great, and that's where I want to remind you guys, if you enjoy this, please go like, rate, and subscribe. Share it with a friend. 5 stars on Apple Podcasts so far. I'm really proud of that, and it's only because of you guys, the people who listen to this. So thank you so much. I appreciate you guys, and it's time for Week 8. So let's get right into it. The first matchup we talked about last week, Clemson versus Boston College. I mean, clearly everyone thought was going to be a cakewalk for Clemson, even without the loss of Trevor Lawrence. I got to be honest with you, game was only saved by DJ Uiagalelei. Oh, my God. He brought them back in the fourth quarter. I'll tell you what, whatever Dabo said at halftime, and Dabo's known for this, is just being everyone's hype man, being that guy, hey, everyone get back, we're good. You know, we might be down by X amount of points, but it doesn't matter. We're going to win this game. And Clemson just rallies in the fourth quarter. ETN, 20 carries for 84 yards and a touchdown. ETN actually fumbling the ball at one point and giving up a 98-yard touchdown off the turnover. It was an ugly day for Clemson, but they squeaked by with the win. 34-28, Boston College. Honestly, I don't know how Clemson didn't drop out of the number 1 spot this week, but regardless, it is what it is. After that, we had Georgia versus Kentucky. Georgia winning, by 11 points. So barely 2 touchdowns. Really ugly showing for Georgia against this Kentucky team, who personally, I always said that Kentucky has a really good chance of upsetting whoever they play because their football program, even on the losing side of things this year, is always somewhat great. So Georgia wins that game. Then after that, Memphis versus Cincinnati. Cincinnati trounces them 49-10. Then one of the bigger upsets of the week, something that I feel like Jordan and I definitely didn't expect, Michigan State beats Michigan by a field goal. You talk about a crazy game all around. We talked about the Lombardi quarterback last week. He was 17 of 32 for 323 yards and 3 touchdowns. The quarterback for Michigan, Joe Milton, was 32 of 51 for 300 yards. I'll tell you what, the running game was not established in this game. I feel like it was predominantly defense and more than anything, just a defensive game all the way around. So Michigan State wins that one 27-24. Then it came true. I don't know what made me feel like this. West Virginia dominates Kansas State 37-10. And now, like I said, I look at a team like West Virginia. They have the same record as Kansas State. So you don't know what's going to happen when you come into it. We spoke about Howard and about Doge. You look at these two quarterbacks, and they have fairly similar stats. So clearly it was just a toss-up, but for whatever reason, I just really felt like West Virginia was going to come out on top, and they do 37-10. Then the other one that we talked about, which was kind of, a lost cause, an 0-5 team, Coastal Carolina versus Georgia State. Coastal Carolina 51-0. Clemson-esque kind of blowout. So, or Alabama-esque even, who knows. But regardless, they win that game. Then we have Iowa State and Kansas. Iowa State number 23. They beat Kansas 52-22. So, ugly all-around game that day. Then Notre Dame beating Georgia Tech 31-13. Notre Dame clearly still number 4. Then Indiana-Rutgers. Indiana comes out on top 37-21. Texas, I'm so disappointed. I got to tell you. Texas in overtime comes out on top of Oklahoma State 41-34. Oklahoma State's quarterback, hear me out on this one, Spencer Sanders, right? 27 of 39, 400 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 1 interception. He had 100 yards for every touchdown he threw. Is that not a completely nuts stat? Come on. OT thriller, though, if you didn't watch this game, you missed out. Ellinger not performing well at all. 18 of 34, 169 yards, 3 touchdowns. But still managed to propel them to a win. I got to be honest with you. I don't think we see Oklahoma State within the top 10 this week. So I hope we see them back, though. They're a phenomenal team. Chuba Hubbard, though, I got to tell you, 25 carries of 72 yards. Didn't see a big production game out of him. I feel like the run game and them losing him kind of all around, even though he shares the load with 2 or 3 other running backs, I got to tell you, I think that he was the make or break for that game, that they did not have a lot of good rushing out of him. So regardless, Texas wins that game. Then Boise State versus Air Force. Boise State number 25. They beat Air Force 49-30. Alabama, of course, we don't have to talk about it. They beat Mississippi State, a.k.a. nobody right now, 41-0. Then Ohio State, I'll tell you what, I think Ohio State right now deserves to be at least the number 2 team. I think it should be Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson, Notre Dame. Only because of how close Clemson came to losing. I don't care if their quarterback's out. I'll be honest with you. I genuinely don't care, but regardless, Ohio State squeaks by, well, not even squeaks by, beat Penn State by 13 points, again, 38-25. Penn State falls out of the rankings this week, I'm pretty sure, because they were already number 18 with 1 loss. So, regardless, then after that, Arkansas versus Texas A&M. A&M comes out on top 42-31. Then Missouri versus my new alma mater, UF, 41-17. They beat Missouri. Florida stays at 10 more than likely. I don't think we see them move up at all this week. Then SMU trounces Navy 51-37. Virginia squeaks by North Carolina 44-41. Another loss for this North Carolina team who looked so good in the beginning of the season. So tough loss for them. Then we have Oklahoma and Spencer Rattler. Listen to this one. 21-30, 288 yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, I'll tell you what, and on Oklahoma side of the ball, it wasn't even about Spencer Rattler. They've got a running back who caught my eye, Ramondre Stevenson. 13 carries, 87 yards, 3 touchdowns. I'll tell you what, having 3 touchdowns in a game against a team like Texas Tech, obviously, who is not necessarily, bad, but also not ungodly terrible. So 3 touchdowns for him, and really impressed me. Then after that, BYU versus Western Kentucky. They beat Western Kentucky. BYU does 41-10, and I think BYU cracks into the top 10 this week, more than likely. And then we had 2 postponed games this week. Unfortunately, Wisconsin and Nebraska gets canceled, and Marshall and Florida International also gets postponed. That was the Friday night game. So regardless, that was our lineup for last week. Now let's jump into this week. We're going to jump ship, as I like to say. First game, Miami sits at 11. Here, I always do this for some reason. I'm going to go over the rankings with you guys first, and then we'll go into the first game. So first one we got number 1 Clemson, number 2 Alabama, number 3 Ohio State, number 4 Notre Dame, 5 UGA, number 6 Cincinnati, number 7 Texas A&M, number 8 Florida. Okay, so they did break top 10. Okay. Number 9 BYU and number 10 Wisconsin. Wisconsin falls 1 spot. BYU's up 2. Florida's up 2. A&M and Cincinnati both up 1. Then Oklahoma State falls to 14. They drop 8 spots. And Michigan drops 10 spots. And we see Texas back at 22. Oklahoma up 5 to 19. And I'll tell you what, I want to see Oklahoma State back in that top 10 because they definitely deserve that. So now we're going to go back to all of the games. I swear I do that every time. I'm sorry. So Miami versus NC State, our first game. That's going to be our Friday night game. I'll tell you what. I think, again, I said from the jump, Miami's the imposter. Miami's sitting at negative 10.5. I got to tell you, I think personally, from a better judgment standpoint, I'm going to take Miami, but watch out for NC State because they're 4-2 to Miami's 5-1. So keep an eye on NC State Friday night. Then we have BYU versus Boise State. BYU number 9, Boise State number 21. Clearly BYU coming out on top of this. Their Heisman contender quarterback. I mean, on the season, this kid, Zach Wilson, I'll tell you what, just impressive all the way around. He's 144 of 193, 2,152 yards, 19 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. So just an impressive season for him, clearly in the Heisman race. I'm going to take BYU in that one, but Boise State is 2-0. So I got to tell you, I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to say it's an upset because I clearly expect BYU to win, but that blue field, Jordan and I talked about it last week, so this will be the only, the second or third game we've covered for Boise State this season. So I'm going to take BYU. Then Michigan and Indiana. Michigan 1-1, sitting at 23. And then Indiana at 13, 2-0. You know what? I'm going to pick Indiana this week. I like the way Indiana's playing. I'm pretty sure they're favored. I think that Jim Harbaugh is definitely on the hot seat in Michigan. I think if he doesn't have a winning season this year, we won't see him up in Ann Arbor next year. So then after that, SMU number 18 versus unranked Temple. SMU 6-1, Temple 1-3. I'm going to take SMU. That's a no-brainer. USC versus Arizona State. This is these two teams' first matchup of the season. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm personally going to go with USC only because they're ranked, but I honestly have no idea. Big toss-up. Then Texas and West Virginia. West Virginia last week pulling off the upset, as well as Texas. And I got to be honest with you, I'm not going to pick against West Virginia again. I'm going to take West Virginia. They both, like I said, both are 4-2. I'm going to go with West Virginia again. Then Liberty versus Virginia Tech. Liberty 6-0, cracking into the top 25. for, I believe it's the first time in years, I'm pretty sure. They're 6-0. Again, Virginia Tech 4-2. I don't know who Liberty's played so far. So, personally, I'm going to pick Virginia Tech, but keep an eye on this Liberty team. Then, UMass and Marshall. Marshall number 16, 5-0. UMass 0-1. Clearly Marshall's the choice here, so I'm going with Marshall. Then the biggest game of the year, more than likely, we've got Florida versus Georgia. Stetson Bennett versus Kyle Trask. Trask on the season, 95 of 139, 1,341 yards, 18 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. Stetson Bennett, 80 of 137, 1,089 yards, 7 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Florida 3-1, UGA 4-1. Big decider this year of how the rankings fall. I think that Pitts and Trask together are going to be able to pull off the upset here. I'm going to go with Florida. I'm going to take Florida in this game. It's not because I'm going there for school. I just feel as though Florida has a very, very good chance of winning this game. So I'm going to go with UF. Then Houston-Cincinnati. Clearly Houston wins this game without a doubt. Oklahoma versus Kansas. Number 19, Oklahoma versus Kansas. Oklahoma 4-2, Kansas 0-6. Jordan's favorite team. Sorry, Jordan. It's Oklahoma week. Spencer Rattler is more than likely going to pick apart this Kansas team, so I'm going with Oklahoma. Then Purdue and Wisconsin gets canceled again. Not the same. It's obviously not the same game, but Wisconsin's game gets canceled again due to COVID. I think if we were to have picked that game, I personally would have taken Wisconsin, but since it's canceled, who knows? Then Oklahoma State versus Kansas State. And I'll tell you what, Kansas State coming in with a chip on their shoulder, still a great team. And, both teams coming in with a chip on their shoulders, both coming off of bitter losses to teams that they really shouldn't have lost to, both losing to unranked teams, and Oklahoma State still being the only one ranked. I got to be honest with you, I think Kansas State has a really good chance of winning this game if they can contain Chuba Hubbard. But I'm going to pick Oklahoma State in good faith. Then Texas A&M versus South Carolina. And I'll tell you what, South Carolina pulled out the upset on me. And I really don't want to pick against Texas A&M, but I'm going to go ahead and pick Texas A&M, but keep an eye out for South Carolina because somehow, always, they pull off an upset. So then Baylor, Iowa State. Iowa State 17, Baylor now without Matt Rule. I'm going to pick Iowa State. And then we have probably, and this is actually, Florida-Georgia is probably technically going to be the second biggest game of the year because Clemson versus Notre Dame without Trevor Lawrence this week is going to be either a blowout or a scary close game like it was with Boston College. DJ Uiagalelei, he managed to bring them back in the fourth quarter. Clemson at the advantage. They think that, or ESPN at least thinks that Clemson is going to be the winner in this one. I got to be honest with you. I'm picking against them this week. I'm taking Notre Dame. I don't think the Trevor Lawrence-less Clemson Tigers can handle Notre Dame, especially not after coming off such a close loss or close win to a Boston College team last week. Then Rutgers versus number 3 Ohio State. Ohio State clearly takes this game without even thought. Rutgers 1-1, Ohio State 2-0. Then Stanford versus Oregon. Oregon number 12. First game we see from them this season, Pac-12 football kicking off. I'm going to take Oregon over Stanford, but again, kind of a toss-up. I'm only taking Oregon because I see that they're number 12. Then South Alabama versus Coastal Carolina. Coastal Carolina, as we mentioned, 6-0, number 15. I'm taking them over South Alabama. So that's it for our college football this week. I think my two marquee matchups this week are definitely going to be Clemson versus Notre Dame and Florida versus Georgia, two of the biggest games of the year. I'm really excited to see those. Both are, I bet, going to be thrillers. So y'all make sure you go check those out. Let's go ahead and hop over and look at my pigskin pick'em, which got absolutely ripped apart this week by the football gods. I think I prayed too hard for a Steelers win over the Ravens, so they kind of ripped me a new one on my pigskin pick'em. But I'll tell you what, that's all right. So last week we went over it. I was with Jordan. I don't remember who he picked, so I can't really tell you guys who he picked. But I'm gonna go ahead and run through mine at least. And the first one we had was Thursday night, the Falcons versus the Panthers. I truly thought the Falcons would not get their first win, but I'll tell you what, they did. And or I'm sorry, not their first win, their second win. They beat the Panthers 25-17. I picked the Panthers. Then Bills squeaked by the Patriots due to another Cam Newton fumble, 24-21. Bills win. Of course, I picked them. Then the biggest surprise of the year, Joe Burrow comes out and just demolishes the Titans. 31-20, the Bengals win. I'll tell you what, definitely not expecting that. So that was kind of an interesting game. I didn't really get to watch it, and of course, I can't watch all the games. So I kind of switched through them, but I don't get to analyze every single one of them. So unfortunately, but I really like to analyze this one because it was scary for Tennessee coming off of the loss from Pittsburgh. Then the Raiders win a close one with the Browns. Raiders sit at 3-3, Browns at 5-2. Raiders win 16-6. I picked the Raiders. I fully expected it to be a blowout because of Baker Mayfield being hurt, no more Odell Beckham. But the Browns still, they lose, and it's in a close one. They only lost by 10. Then Colts-Lions. I couldn't have told you it was going to be a blowout. I really didn't think it would be. But the Colts beat the Lions 41-21, advanced to 5-2. Again, one of the better teams in the AFC this season. I've been telling you guys for a long time. I really like what they're doing in Indianapolis, and they proved it against the Lions. The Lions go to 3-4, Colts to 5-2. Then the Vikings, again, I'm telling you, I'm just getting ripped apart here. The Vikings beat the Packers and advanced to 2-5. They win 28-22. Aaron Rodgers gets strip sacked on one of his almost famous Hail Marys. I picked the Packers. I mean, I'll tell you what, the only thing I could be sure of this week was that the Chiefs were going to beat the Jets. And that's our next matchup. They win 35-9, Chiefs to 7-1, Jets to 0-7 or 0-8, sorry. And then another. I mean, what happened? The Dolphins 28-17 over the Rams. The Dolphins moved to 4-3, the Rams to 5-3. And I got to tell you, I am just so mind blown at how I got ripped apart this week for my picks. I mean, I think this has been the worst week so far. But I'm striving for a perfect week. I hope every week it's going to be a perfect pick. But so far it hasn't happened. I think it's going to happen this week because I really like the matchups we have. So then I have Steelers-Ravens, which, oh my God, if you didn't watch it, was probably one of the best games of the year. The Steelers squeaked by. Everybody was talking about kind of the high-low hit at the end. I personally, as a referee, if I were one, I wouldn't have called that. And I'm not even just saying that because I'm a fan. This is where I take the fan hat off, put the analyst hat on. I don't think that the hit was intentional on both players. I know that Minka Fitzpatrick was chasing the ball down, and I think he just didn't see Sutton coming from the other side. So I think it was unintentional. And I'll tell you what, the Ravens put up the most yards in rushing the Steelers have seen all year. I mean, Lamar Jackson just absolutely demolishing every bit of the Steelers' defense. I mean, we got to him a few times. I noticed we started stacking Bud Dupree and T.J. Watt on one side. I don't know if that was to throw them off or what that even was, but they were doing it most of the game, and it was very, very confusing. I don't know why they would do that. But once they put them back on their respective sides, then all of a sudden we start stopping them. I mean, one big play after another on defense. I mean, a lot of 3-and-outs from the Ravens, struggled to convert on third down. And just an all-around great game. Steelers advanced to 7-0, Ravens to 5-2. And then another one, the Broncos beat the Chargers by one singular point. Drew Lock flexing on the entire Chargers sideline, showing the swagger that he has. But again, I still think, this is where I come back to Trevor Lawrence, I still think Trevor Lawrence runs through Denver. Somehow, some way. I don't know. But I think they're going to give Drew Lock another year to kind of see what happens. But if he keeps playing like that, I mean, the Broncos still 3-4 after this week. So unless Drew Lock can lead them to a winning season, I don't think we see Drew Lock in Denver in either this year or next year. So then after that, Saints beat the Bears in a close one. Saints advance to 5-2, Bears to 5-3. Saints win 26-23. Then 49ers Seahawks. Seahawks win by 10. Russell Wilson continues his MVP campaign, kind of revives it almost with him and DK Metcalf. They are a scary duo when they're clicking. I'll tell you what, DK Metcalf, phenomenal game, speedster, and just an all-around good game. Seahawks prevail 37-27. Then the ugliest Sunday night game of all time. Sunday and Monday were like the worst 2 days for football, in my opinion, except for Monday night, which we all thought was going to be ugly. I mean, my score prediction was way off. So I picked the Cowboys, another one that got torn apart. The Eagles beat the Cowboys 23-9 on Sunday night. Then the Buccaneers squeak by the Giants 25-23. And here's what I want to say about the Buccaneers. Everyone is always so hypocritical of the Buccaneers. Oh, they just had a bad game, whatever. I'm sorry, but if you're the Buccaneers and you won on a pass interference in the end zone on a 2-point conversion in a game that you were originally predicted to win by at least 30-plus points because the Giants were 1-6 at the time, now 1-7, the fact that you barely squeaked by them and won off of a penalty and had the most rush yards put on you by a team this season, by the New York Giants without Saquon Barkley, I'm sorry, but that's a crying shame. At least the number 2 rush defense, we don't have to say names, you know who it is, had a good amount of rush yards put on them by a good team, not the Giants. So I still say Bucks 8-8 this year. I don't care, whatever you guys want to believe. I'm still saying Bucks 8-8 because they still have to play the Chiefs. The Saints coming up this week on Sunday night, and then Carolina, Atlanta. I'm not saying that Atlanta's some kind of contender, but if they're going to be known for losing close games to bad teams, I mean, we may as well toss Atlanta up in the race. So I don't see this Tampa Bay team being able to beat a lot of these good teams they have coming up in their schedule. So now let's jump into Week 9. We have a really good matchup set this week. I really like the games this week. So first one, Thursday night, Packers and 49ers. Packers 5-2 as of this week, 49ers 4-4. I got to be honest with you. I think in this one, the Packers chip on the shoulder Aaron Rodgers. We know we don't like him. But I got to tell you, this 49ers team is just too injured for me to pick them. I'm going with the Packers. Then Broncos and Falcons, battle of the uglies, as we say. You know what? I think that if Drew Lock wins this game, he makes a statement. But I'm going to pick the Falcons. I'm going to go with them this week. Then Seahawks and Bills. Seahawks 6-1, Bills 6-2. This is going to be a great game. I'm definitely tuning into this one. I got to say, I'm going to go with the Seahawks. But I'm going to put them on upset alert. I think the Bills may end up winning this game. So I'm going to go with Seahawks, but watch out for the Bills. Then Bears 5-3, Titans 5-2. We see them coming into a matchup this week. I'll be honest with you, I'm going to take the Titans. I think chip on the shoulder Derrick Henry, kind of like Aaron Rodgers, is a scary sight to see, especially after getting blown out by the Bengals. So I'm taking the Titans. Then Lions and Vikings. I'll be honest with you, I don't really know who to pick in this one. We've got Kirk Cousins versus Matthew Stafford, 2 of the most mediocre quarterbacks in NFL history. Just kidding, Matthew Stafford, a legend, obviously. I'm going to go with the Vikings. Then Ravens and Colts. A lot of the people in the NFL predictions are putting up this week that they're picking the Colts over the Ravens, saying that the Colts are somehow a better team than the Ravens. I'll be 100% honest with you, I am not of that opinion. I am going to personally, as much as I love the Colts and what they're doing with their team, I'm going to take the Ravens, but I'm telling you what, the Colts could win a close one. So we'll see what happens. I, as a Steelers fan, and here's when I put my fan hat back on for a second, would love to see the Ravens lose to the Colts and kind of start knocking them down out of the AFC North race. But I'm going to go with the Ravens because I'll tell you what, I got a healthy respect for Lamar Jackson in the fourth quarter. So then after that, Panthers and Chiefs. Clearly, I think the Chiefs come out on top of this one. Panthers still a really good team. I think we see Christian McCaffrey back this week. And if the Panthers can get the ground game going and Teddy Bridgewater can connect on all of his passes, I think the Panthers have a solid chance of winning this game. But the Chiefs just obviously they're 7-1. You fully expect them to beat the Panthers all day long, kind of like playing the Jets. So the Panthers aren't as bad as the Jets, but regardless, I'm taking the Chiefs. Then another NFC East, or I should say NFC least battle. Giants versus the Washington football team. I think, who did I pick last time? I think I picked the Giants last time and Washington won. So I'm going to go with the Giants again, just for the fun of it, just because I think of how well they performed against the Buccaneers is going to propel them into a win against Washington. So I'm going to pick the Giants. Then Texans, Jaguars, I'm picking the Texans. Raiders and Chargers. I'm going to be honest with you. I think the Raiders win this, but watch out for Justin Herbert. Then, again, here comes the fan hat. The only undefeated team in the league. Thank you very much. Steelers versus Cowboys. The Cowboys without Andy Dalton. And even if they had Andy Dalton, we know how he plays. So I'm going to go with the Steelers. There's not a doubt in my mind they win that one. Then Dolphins and Cardinals. I think this is going to be a very good game. We've got Tua Tagovailoa versus Kyler Murray. This is going to be another one of those that I tune into. I got to be honest with you. I'm going to go with the Cardinals, but watch out for this Dolphins team. They're playing really well right now. So then Saints versus Buccaneers. Buccaneers 6-2, Saints 5-2. I'm taking the Saints. Sorry, Buccaneers fans. I got to tell you, after only beating the Giants by 2 points, you don't have my respect. You haven't had it yet because it's an overhyped bandwagon, and I'm picking the Saints. Then Patriots versus Jets. They had a poll the other day. What would happen first? Would the Jets get their first win, or would the Steelers lose first? And I got to be honest with you. I see Pittsburgh losing before the Jets win, so I'm taking the Patriots in this one. And the score prediction I'm going to put up there, Cam Newton with a chip on his shoulder. I'm going to go, because all of the ones that I've predicted a high score, they've been a low score. So I'm going to take the Patriots over the Jets, 34-21. I'm just going to say that the Jets put up 21 on the Patriots. We're going to go ahead and submit that, submit your picks, and that is it for this week's NFL picks. And so I do want to tell you guys, I just want to cover it with you because, of course, a dreadful NFL trade deadline today. First, we see the Chiefs trading running back DeAndre Washington and a 7th-round pick to Miami for a 6th-round pick. Then after that, we have Isaiah Ford going to a rare in-conference trade to New England. After that, Desmond King to the Titans. Nothing super crazy there. But then one of the ones that surprised me, the 49ers dealt Quan Alexander to New Orleans for Kiko Alonso and a 5th-round pick. I'll be honest with you, why deal Kiko Alonso if you're just going to bring back almost the same caliber player? I mean, Quan Alexander, a phenomenal player, but so is Kiko Alonso. So why deal him? There's no point. I mean, if you matched Kiko Alonso with Quan Alexander, it would be a scary duo. That would have been one of the things that propelled the Saints to a different kind of defense. Then the Steelers managed to steal Avery Williamson for a 5th-round pick. They say that it's a B-plus grade for the trade, but I'll be 100% honest with you. I think that was more of an A-plus for Pittsburgh rather than a B-plus because the Jets ultimately lost that trade. 100%. I mean, for a 5th-round pick, are you kidding me? Come on. So then after that, Seahawks get Bengals defensive end Carlos Dunlap for B.J. Finney, former Steeler, and a 7th-round pick. After that, Everson Griffin in exchange for a 6th-round pick. Lions get him from the Cowboys. Unique Ngakoue before the deadline goes to the Ravens and matches back up with Calais Campbell. I'll tell you what, that's going to be a scary duo. They already have the chemistry, and Baltimore's defensive line was already nasty. So those were the only trades that caught my eye this week. Obviously, we're at the deadline. We won't see any more for the rest of the season. I know there were a few teams looking to drop some players tomorrow after the deadline passes, so we'll see what happens as of next week because obviously free agents are free agents. They can get signed anywhere. So I want to thank you guys for tuning in. That is a wrap for this week. Hey, don't forget, please like, rate, subscribe, all that good stuff. We have a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and that's only because of you guys who listen. So thank you so much. I truly appreciate the support. Everybody listening and watching. I hope you enjoy this. So, hey, again, another one. Don't forget, go check out the social medias at Second Chance Pod on Instagram and Twitter. I try to keep up on there as much as I can and share these episodes. So, like I said, go check it all out. Like, rate, subscribe, and until next time, we will see you later.